The Architect's Fated Design, Part 1, The Death and the Arrival. Elara Vance lived her life in lines and angles. She saw the world not in messy, organic chaos, but in perfectly balanced trusses, the clean sweep of curtain walls, and the rigorous logic of structural integrity. These were the principles she clung to, the only order she could impose on a life that was constantly threatening to collapse around her. In 2 weeks, she would stand at the podium at the Columbia Graduate School of Architecture, presenting her master's thesis, a visionary, sustainable housing complex for the Brooklyn waterfront, and graduate summa cum laude. In reality, she was living 2 stops away from that waterfront in a cramped, 2-bedroom pre-war apartment where the plaster was cracking faster than she could earn money to fix it. She worked 2 jobs. The first, a barista shift from 5 a.m. to 1 p.m. at The Daily Grind in Dumbo, paid for rent and utilities. The second, a grueling 5 hours every evening tutoring high school students in calculus and physics, paid for Arthur, her father. Arthur Vance was a man who once built monuments. He was a master craftsman, a foreman whose touch could turn blueprints into bedrock, but his career was now just a painful memory. Alcoholism and a severe, crippling addiction to high-stakes poker had reduced him from a titan of the construction industry to a liability Elara was fiercely determined to protect. It was 11:30 p.m. on a Tuesday, and the spring air was heavy with the distant sound of sirens and the smell of stale coffee from her jacket. Elara stepped into the dim hallway of her apartment building. The silence from inside her apartment was wrong. It wasn't the quiet of sleep, it was the tense, empty quiet of a vacuum. She pushed the door open. The familiar, comforting mess was gone, replaced by a ruthless, surgical devastation. Her father's favorite armchair was overturned. The cheap wooden table they ate at was split clean in half. But the damage wasn't random, nothing essential was broken. Her architecture models, safely housed on a high shelf, were untouched. It was a message of control, not malice. Then she saw Arthur. He was sitting on the floor, leaning against the kitchen counter, his face a bruised canvas of fear and shame. He looked up at her, and the defeat in his eyes was worse than any physical injury. Elara, he started, his voice a dry rasp. Don't, Dad. Just tell me what it is this time. Is it the loan shark from Staten Island again? Elara walked straight to the small, secured strongbox hidden beneath a floorboard, the emergency fund for her tuition. It was still locked. Small mercies. A deep, smooth voice cut through the air, unnervingly close. It's significantly bigger than Staten Island, Miss Vance. And it's not just a loan. Elara spun around. Standing framed in the doorway to the living room was a man who seemed to embody the city's hidden, uncompromising power. Dominic Ricci. At 29, he was impossibly young to be the head of the infamous Ricci syndicate, yet his presence was absolute. He wore a perfectly tailored charcoal suit, the fabric moving like liquid around a predator. His eyes, the color of polished jade, were assessing, dismissive, and utterly fixed on her. He wasn't big, but he was dense, radiating a quiet, dangerous energy that seemed to compress the air in the room. Beside him stood 2 men, large, silent, and dressed in dark, expensive clothes. They weren't bodyguards, they were extensions of his will. Who are you, and what have you done to my apartment? Elara demanded, her pulse hammering, but her voice remaining level. She had spent a lifetime learning not to show weakness. Dom smiled, a faint, predatory curve of the lips. Dominic Ricci. And your father invited us in, though the decor adjustment was perhaps an unfortunate side effect of his reluctance to discuss his debts. He stepped forward, the single movement filling the room with his presence. Arthur here owes my organization $2 million. A sizable figure even for a talentless gambler. Elara felt the blood drain from her face. $2 million. That was more than the collective value of her entire future. 2 million? That's impossible. You're lying. I assure you, I rarely bother with anything so pedestrian as a lie, Dom countered, reaching into his inner jacket pocket. He produced a crisp, professionally printed document and let it drop onto the overturned armchair. That's the signed IOU. Arthur lost it fair and square in the back room of the Crimson Den last month. He paused, letting the reality sink in, then delivered the final, crippling blow. However, money is fungible. The real issue is the collateral he offered when his cash ran out. Dom pulled out a second item, not a contract, but a small, heavy black folder secured with a tamper-proof seal. The seal bore the intricate, unmistakable mark of the City of New York Infrastructure Commission. Your father, in his desperation, offered up something rather unique, the early schematics and geological surveys for the city's planned third tunnel expansion, a project so highly classified that a leak could cause billions in losses and land Arthur in a cell for treason, if my men didn't get to him first. Dom opened the folder, revealing architectural drawings that made Elara's trained eyes widen in involuntary fascination and immediate horror. This is the real value. This is the death sentence he signed. He closed the folder with a sharp snap and looked directly into Elara's eyes, bypassing Arthur completely. So, here is the offer. It is not negotiable. It is a one-time trade. The debt, the 2 million, and the treasonous collateral are erased. Elara didn't move, her mind racing, searching for the loophole, the structural weakness in his proposition. There was none. The price, she asked, the single word sharp as a shard of glass. Dom's smile widened, cold and utterly certain. You. Elara Vance. You will marry me, and you will become the chief architect of the Ricci syndicate. Officially, you will head a legitimate, high-end construction and development firm, a firm that will launder and legitimize my empire through billion-dollar skyline projects. Unofficially, you will design my fortresses, my safe houses, and my means of escape. You will give my power structure the clean, unassailable architecture it desperately needs. He gestured to the surrounding wreckage. I see precision in you. I see the ambition to build things that last. I don't want a wife, I want a strategic asset. A genius in a silk dress. No, Elara whispered, the word tasting like ash. I won't. I don't deal with criminals. I built my life on integrity. Integrity? Dom laughed, a low, humorless sound. Look around, Elara. Your integrity buys you a cracked ceiling and a father who is currently a dead man walking. Refuse me, and 3 things happen. Arthur dies for treason, slowly, painfully. Your career at Columbia? Finished. I own the board, the deans, and the licensing committees. You will never design anything more complicated than a doghouse. And finally, he leaned in, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper, I will dismantle every structural support you have spent 22 years building. Piece by piece. He straightened up, checking the cuff of his shirt as if the conversation was already over. You have 48 hours to decide whether you want to be the architect of an empire or the architect of your own destruction. He turned to leave, but paused at the doorway. One more thing, Elara. I'm an efficient man. I don't waste time on courtship rituals. Consider this next week to be an educational period. I will show you, very clearly, that the world outside my protection is actively trying to kill you, or failing that, make you irrelevant. The apartment door clicked shut behind him, and the heavy silence rushed back in, now loaded with the weight of $2 million, a secret city tunnel, and a life sentence to a golden cage. The next morning, Elara showed up at the daily grind at 4:50 a.m., 5 minutes early, her eyes gritty from a sleepless night of running structural calculations and failing to find a solution. She needed the money, and she needed the routine. She didn't make it past the door. The familiar face of the store manager, Mike, was replaced by a sharp-eyed woman in an impeccably pressed corporate polo shirt. "Morning," Elara said, trying to push past, her hand reaching for her apron in her locker. "You won't need that, Miss Vance." The woman blocked her path. "My name is Claire. I'm the new regional manager. As of 5 o'clock this morning, the entire Daily Grind franchise has been acquired by Ricci Holdings. Effective immediately, your employment has been terminated. The severance pay, a check for 6 months of your current salary, is waiting for you at the district office. You are not allowed on the premises. Have a nice day." Elara stood frozen. Ricci. It was a single, devastating demonstration of power. He hadn't bought her a diamond ring, he had bought her job. He hadn't sent flowers, he had sent a pink slip wrapped in a thread. He was right. This wasn't a choice. It was a judgment. She walked out of the store and onto the street, the cold, clean geometry of her ambitious life already beginning to crack under the overwhelming weight of Dominic Ricci's shadow. She had 47 hours left, and already, she was isolated. The game had begun. Part 2, The Golden Cage. The 48-hour countdown was a formality. Dominic Ricci had not offered a negotiation, he had presented a verdict, and the subsequent days were merely his rigorous, cruel demonstration of why resistance was futile. Elara's world, once defined by the clear, predictable physics of structural engineering, had become fluid, terrifyingly responsive to the will of a single man. After losing her barista job, she attempted to secure a simple waitressing position downtown. The initial enthusiasm from the manager, a woman desperate for reliable evening staff, turned into strained confusion the moment Elara provided her full name. I'm sorry, Miss Vance," the manager stammered into the phone after a brief, panic call to an unseen entity. "We've just filled the position. Unexpectedly. Good luck." The same scenario played out 3 times in 24 hours. Dom wasn't just removing her income, he was strategically cutting off her access to the honest world. He wanted her starved of independence, convinced that every door not opened by the Ricci syndicate was permanently locked. The final pillar of her stability crumbled on Thursday afternoon. Her second job, tutoring high school students in advanced math and physics, was highly paid and discreet. It was this income that truly kept Arthur afloat. She arrived at the Upper East Side brownstone of her best client, only to be met by a grim-faced nanny holding a thick envelope. "Miss Vance, the family sends their apologies," the nanny said, her eyes avoiding Elara's. "The retainer is enclosed. They cited unforeseen ethical conflicts regarding your association with certain parties. They wish you well." Elara didn't need to open the envelope. The paper was stiff, the amount exactly what she was owed, plus a generous bonus designed to buy silence and prevent a scene. Dom had moved beyond her direct employment, he was poisoning her reputation in the quiet, high society circles where her hard-earned professional skills were valued. With her income streams evaporated, Elara's only remaining fortress was Columbia University. The email from Professor Keller, her revered thesis advisor, arrived an hour later. The subject line, "Urgent, Committee Review Adjustment." Professor Keller looked ancient, defeated by the fluorescent light of his office. He was a man who lived and breathed brutalist architecture, and now, he looked like a victim of it. "Elara, your design, the Brooklyn Arches project, is brilliant. It's arguably the finest work I've seen in a decade," he said, his voice low and tight as he locked his office door. "But the board, they've mandated an emergency review of your candidacy. Not your work. You. My candidacy? What does that even mean?" Elara gripped the edge of the chair, trying to keep her posture perfect, the one thing she could still control. Keller sighed, running a hand over his bald head. The official line is unresolved moral ambiguity. They are circulating documents, very old, very specific police reports concerning Arthur Vance's gambling debts and associations with known, shall we say, organized interests. The implication is that your academic success may have been leveraged by illicit funds, compromising the integrity of the institution. Elara felt sick. Dom hadn't just threatened her career, he was already executing the threat. He had used her father's history as a scalpel to excise her from the legitimate world. But the school knows about my father's issues. They accepted my financial aid explanations years ago. The school accepted Arthur Vance's issues. They did not accept the threat of a major city infrastructure scandal being linked, however remotely, to one of their star graduates, Keller whispered, leaning forward. Elara, the head of the endowment fund, had a lengthy, very private meeting with a representative of a new holding company that is suddenly very interested in our real estate expansion. This review isn't about ethics. It's about power. They are giving you a choice: drop out now with grace, or face public humiliation and the total invalidation of your degree. They are setting you up to fail your final defense. Elara stared at the perfect white ceiling of the office, the clean lines mocking her. Dom had cornered her, brick by invisible brick. He had made her realize that outside his umbrella, her father was dead, and she was, professionally, a ghost. The final act of the ultimatum was a summons. A burner phone, discreetly slipped into her purse while she was in the university library, buzzed with a single address: One World Trade Center, 90th floor. Elara arrived at the sleek, black glass tower in her finest, though most conservative, charcoal suit, a deliberate echo of Dom's tailoring, a silent declaration that she was coming as an equal, not a victim. The building was a monument to wealth and power, the exact kind of structure Dom intended to weaponize. Marco, the consigliere, met her in the lobby and ushered her into a private elevator that bypassed all security and intermediate floors, rocketing them to the sky. The penthouse was overwhelming. It wasn't opulent, it was minimalist, designed to put the focus entirely on the view. The walls were panoramic glass, offering an undisputed, godlike view of Manhattan, Brooklyn, and Queens, the very empire Dom claimed to control. The only furniture of note was a massive, single slab of polished obsidian that served as a desk, and a pair of white leather chairs facing the window. Dominic Ricci was waiting by the glass, holding a tumbler of amber liquid. He didn't turn around immediately. He simply commanded the space. "You've seen the damage, Elara," Dom said, his voice amplified by the vast, silent room. The tutoring, the coffee shop, Keller's pitiful panic. "I didn't just dismantle your life, I proved to you that without my protection, your world is hostile to your existence. Now tell me, why are you here?" Elara walked toward the obsidian desk, forcing him to acknowledge her proximity. "I'm here because you are a manipulative criminal who has stolen my freedom. I'm here to know exactly what you expect from your strategic asset, and why you chose me." Dom finally turned, his jade eyes locking on hers with an intensity that felt like a physical weight. "Why you? Because you are obsessed with permanence. You design structures that endure, that defy gravity, that protect the things inside them. Your thesis project wasn't just sustainable housing, it was a fortress disguised as a community. You think in layers of defense, compartmentalization, and maximum efficiency." He set his drink down. "The Ricci syndicate is profitable, but it is structurally unsound. It's built on outdated loyalties, paper trails, and constant vulnerability. I want to build a legitimate facade so solid, so complex, that the illegal foundations beneath it become invisible, untouchable, and permanent. I need a genius to design that unassailable shell. I need you to be the ultimate structural engineer for my life." Elara felt a thrill of horrified professional recognition. He saw her, truly saw her talent, perhaps better than anyone else had. He wasn't just marrying a pretty face, he was acquiring the mind that could create the perfect golden cage. And my father, she challenged, her voice trembling slightly, but holding firm. If I agree, how do I know you won't eliminate him once I'm bound to you? Dom tilted his head, a gesture of cold patience. He picked up a secure tablet from the desk and slid it toward her. It displayed a live security feed. The camera was focused on a pristine, sun-drenched private garden. Sitting at the patio table, reading a book, was Arthur Vance. He was clean-shaven, dressed in fresh clothes, and looked calmer than Elara had seen him in years. The caption at the bottom of the feed read, "The Serenity Pines Rehabilitation and Wellness Center, Arizona. Secure Wing 3. He is in the best facility money can buy," Dom stated, his voice devoid of emotion. "He is under constant watch, my watch. If you comply, he stays there. Clean, safe, protected from the city and from his own demons. If you leave, he goes back to the street, and the Vory find him, and the government finds the collateral. He's safe only as long as you belong to me." Elara looked from the image of her healthy, incarcerated father to the face of the man who owned him. Her future. The vast, breathtaking vista outside the window seemed to be closing in, trapping her in a beautiful, suffocating vice. Her ambition, which craved the resources Dom could provide, wrestled violently with her integrity, which screamed for freedom. But Dom had proven his point. Integrity bought her a one-way ticket to failure and death. Survival, and her father's life, now depended on her compliance. She pushed the tablet away. "Draft the contract. I want specific clauses regarding my architectural autonomy on the legitimate projects. And I want to see the details on the city tunnel expansion collateral." Dom didn't smile this time. He just nodded, a flicker of professional respect in his eyes. He reached into his desk and produced a single, pre-signed legal document sealed in a navy leather portfolio. "Expected, Elara. The documents are ready. The city tunnel schematics are sealed until after the ceremony. They are the leverage, not the price. But the contract regarding your role is crystal clear." He slid the portfolio across the desk. It was a marriage contract and a master service agreement rolled into one, legally binding and terrifyingly complete. She picked up the pen, the smooth, cold metal a stark contrast to her trembling hand. "Strategic asset. Chief Architect. Mrs. Dominic Ricci." "I agree," she said, her voice barely a whisper, a structural beam finally giving way. Dom didn't offer a handshake, or a kiss, or any sign of affection. He simply retrieved the contract, his face a mask of satisfaction. "The ceremony will be private, legally sound, and arranged within the next 7 days. Welcome to the family, Elara. Now, let's talk about the specifications for the new Miami Tower. You have unlimited resources. Build me something unbreakable." The freedom she had just lost was immediately replaced by the dizzying scope of power he had handed her. She was in a cage, but it was a golden cage with the blueprints for an empire. She took a deep breath, the air of the 90th floor feeling both sterile and intoxicating. She realized that Dom wasn't the only one capable of manipulation. She was now the designer of her prison, and she would make sure she knew every hidden weakness in the structure. The game was far from over. Part 3, The Alliance and the Shadow. Elara Vance became Elara Ricci in a ceremony so brief and sterile it felt less like a wedding and more like a shareholder meeting. It took place in the penthouse, with only Dom, Marco, the consigliere, and a state judge present. There was no kiss, no ring exchange beyond the simple gold band Dom slid onto her finger, a beautiful, heavy shackle. She was now legally bound, a strategic acquisition finalized. The first month of her new life was defined by dizzying work and suffocating surveillance. Dom installed her in a spacious, heavily secured wing of his TriBeCa residence, a space custom-built with a drafting studio and servers isolated from the main house network. She wasn't a prisoner in the traditional sense, she was a piece of high-value property that needed rigorous protection. Her first major project was the Miami Tower, a legitimate, multi-billion-dollar development that needed to be more than just a skyscraper. It needed to be a fortress disguised as luxury. Dom gave her a simple mandate: the design must pass every city code inspection, secure every permit, and be structurally flawless. But every structural column, every mechanical room, and every penthouse floor must also be designed to function as a command center, a safe room, or a concealed escape route, ready to activate in under 30 seconds. This was Elara's sweet spot. She thrived on the constraints, treating the syndicate's needs like a complex structural puzzle. Her mind, now unshackled by financial worry and fueled by unlimited resources, produced designs that were both beautiful and brutally pragmatic. She was building an empire, one blueprint at a time, and the intoxicating feeling of creation almost drowned out the bitterness of her captivity. It was during these intense design sessions that she met Julian Reyes. Julian was Dom's shadow, his lieutenant, and, as the organization whispered, his closest brother. He was 27, quick-witted, and possessed a rough charm that contrasted sharply with Dom's cool, controlled authority. Julian ran the street operations, the enforcement, and the immediate threats. The first time Julian walked into her studio, Elara was hunched over a schematic detailing a pressurized ventilation system that could double as a covert data pipeline. Dom's new structural insurance policy, Julian remarked, his tone a mix of respect and thinly veiled resentment. He leaned against the doorway, observing the controlled chaos of her workspace. "I prefer, Chief Architect," Elara corrected, not looking up. Julian grinned, a flash of teeth that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Sure. Chief Architect. You're good, Elara. Better than good. This Miami plan is airtight. You even integrated a reinforced panic room into the core shear wall without increasing the floor-to-area ratio. That's genius." Over the next few weeks, Julian became her main point of contact for the unofficial requests. Dom was too busy managing the macroeconomy of the syndicate. Julian, however, understood the ground-level logistics of crime, the need for discrete entrances, the weight distribution necessary for armored vehicles, and the sight lines required for defensive perimeters. During their late-night meetings, a strange, hesitant truce formed. Julian seemed to genuinely admire her talent and often lamented Dom's cold approach. "He didn't have to do it that way, you know," Julian muttered one night, referencing her forced marriage. "He could have just offered you a job, paid the debt. He likes the power of forcing things. It's what makes him a great boss, and a terrible human being." Julian's subtle comments acted like water torture, eroding the already shaky foundation of her acceptance. He spoke of Dom's ruthlessness with a familiarity that suggested a deep, but complicated, loyalty. Elara began to see the faint outlines of a divide: Julian, the loyal soldier who yearned for recognition; Dom, the cold emperor who valued strategic assets over human connection. Elara's personal life was an even more complex structural design. Dom treated her with a distant, possessive respect. Their relationship was confined to shared meals in his private dining room, where they discussed market analysis, structural costs, and geopolitical stability, never emotions. Dom demanded her presence at charity events and high society galas, treating her as the beautiful, brilliant, and impeccably legitimate face of Ricci Holdings. It was in the suffocating silence of their shared penthouse that the unexpected happened. One cold evening, after a particularly high-pressure presentation to city planners, Elara felt a wave of nausea, followed by a dizzying realization. She missed her period. She conducted a discreet, Anxious calculation, the timing aligned with the night of the ultimatum, 48 hours before she signed the contract, the only night they had spent together. The child was Dom's. The realization struck her like a wrecking ball to her carefully constructed defense mechanism. She had only planned to survive. Now, she had to survive for two. The golden cage suddenly felt like a tomb. She was carrying the heir to a criminal empire, a structural flaw in the perfect, controlled design of Dom's life and her own. She decided to keep the secret locked deeper than any vault she was designing. The fragile equilibrium of their new life was violently shattered 3 weeks later. Elara was in her studio, finalizing the covert drainage pathways for a new New Jersey warehouse complex, when the internal alarm system shrieked, a high-pitched, localized frequency that only Dom and his most trusted security understood. Before she could react, Julian burst into the studio, his face etched with panic and fury. He was armed, his movements quick and decisive. "They found him," Julian spat out, grabbing her arm. "The Vory. Sergei Volkov. They hit the rehab facility in Arizona." Elara's blood ran cold. Arthur. Her father, the reason for her gilded slavery, was the target. "How?" she demanded, stumbling after Julian as he dragged her down a hidden service staircase. "A leak. A goddamn internal leak. Volkov's people hit the place hard. They didn't get him there, but they knew where he was going. They grabbed him during the transport reroute. They have Arthur, Elara. They have him." They reached Dom's private garage, a subterranean labyrinth stocked with armored vehicles. Dom was already there, his usual unflappable calm replaced by a white-hot fury that was more terrifying than any shouting fit. He was speaking rapidly into 2 phones, his focus absolute. "Julian, secure the perimeter. Find the leak. Marco is already on the phone with the compromised contacts. Elara, you stay put. You are the target. Volkov wants the collateral." Dom slammed the phones down. "The Vory know about the city tunnel documents. They think if they have Arthur, they get you, and if they get you, they get the schematics Arthur used as collateral." As he spoke, a secure line began flashing red on his main console. Dom pressed the speaker. A guttural, heavily accented voice filled the garage. "Ricci. Your new bride is not worth a $2 million debt and a future in construction. But the papers her drunken father gave you? Those, I will take. I have Arthur Vance. Trade the collateral for his life." It was Sergei Volkov, the leader of the Vory Visak-1, the Russian mob, Ricci's most formidable rival. Dom's voice was lethal calm. "Sergei, you have a gambler, not an architect. If you touch one hair on his head, I will dismantle your entire operation, piece by piece, starting with your family in Brighton Beach." Sergei laughed, a dry, grating sound. "An empty threat. You care about the woman, Ricci. And soon, you will care about the child she is carrying. I will be in touch, architect." The line cut dead. Elara stared at Dom, her secret, her pregnancy, now brutally exposed to his worst enemy. Dom looked at her, his face a mask of shock, then comprehension, and finally, a terrifying, possessive rage. "A child," he breathed, his eyes scanning her body with a new, clinical intensity. "You kept it from me. You didn't marry a person, Dom. You married an asset. You don't get to ask for trust," she countered, her own fear giving way to a fierce maternal instinct. Dom didn't argue. His mind, like hers, immediately shifted to defense. "Julian. Secure Elara in the Tier 1 safe room immediately. No contact, no exceptions. The Vory know the leverage is stronger now. Marco, get me every single piece of intelligence on Julian's recent contacts. He was the only one with the transport route information. Julian froze, his hand already on the door to the safe room. Dom, what are you saying? I've been your brother for 10 years. I'm the one who covered the transport. The Vory could have tracked the signal. It's not me. Dom fixed him with a cold, unforgiving stare. I don't care about loyalty right now, Julian. I care about the structural weakness that allowed them to penetrate my operation. And you were the access point. Now, secure my wife and my heir. That's your order. Julian looked from Dom to Elara, his face contorted in a painful mix of betrayal and forced obedience. He pushed Elara into the armored safe room, the massive steel door sliding shut with a final, echoing thud. Elara was locked in, pregnant, her father captured, and caught between two power-hungry men, her husband, the Emperor, and Julian, the betrayed lieutenant, now under suspicion. The perfect structural design she had built for her survival was dissolving into chaos, and she was trapped in the epicenter. Part 4, Two Truths and the Final Gambit. The Tier 1 safe room was a testament to Elara's own brilliance, a silent, steel-lined coffin designed to withstand anything short of a bunker-buster missile. It was soundproofed, filtered, and equipped with 3 days of provisions. It was, structurally, perfect. Emotionally, it was a dungeon. Elara sat on the sterile floor, the cold concrete seeping through her tailored suit, and stared at the digital display that showed the room's air quality and structural integrity. Outside, the TriBeCa residence was a hive of frantic activity. Dom was hunting Julian, and the Vory were hunting Arthur. Elara was merely the most valuable trophy in the game, locked away until the violence subsided. She ran her hand over her abdomen, feeling the barely perceptible curve. The revelation of the pregnancy, not to Dom, but to his enemy, Sergei Volkov, had hardened her core. The child was not just Dom's heir, it was her burden, her responsibility, and the only piece of the future she truly owned. She had to survive, and she had to ensure the safety of this fragile new life against the chaos she had married into. The confinement felt like days, though it was likely only hours. Then, a low, barely audible metallic scrape. Elara's architect's ear, trained to detect structural anomalies, picked it up immediately. It wasn't the main door. It was the ventilation duct, the covert data pipeline she had designed herself for maximum security and minimal physical accessibility. A moment later, a cheap, disposable phone, a ghost in Dom's sophisticated security network, tumbled from the vent onto the floor. It was Julian. Elara picked it up, her heart hammering against her ribs. She pressed the answer button on the pre-dialed number. Elara? It's me. Don't speak, just listen. Julian's voice was ragged, tight with desperation. He sounded like a man running for his life. Dom has gone dark, he thinks I'm the leak, and maybe I am, but not the way he thinks. He's going to execute me if he finds me first. You have to understand what's happening, Elara. He is setting you up. Elara didn't move, her gaze sweeping the room for any sign of surveillance, even though she knew her design made it impossible. The debt, Elara. The $2 million. It was a lie. A structural fabrication. Arthur's real debt, his maximum exposure to the Crimson Den, was 100,000, maybe 150 at the most. It was an embarrassment, not a death sentence. Elara felt the world tilt. The cold rage that had sustained her during the past months suddenly ignited into a blinding inferno. Dom inflated it. He paid off the right people, got the documents forged, and then he manipulated Arthur into using the city tunnel schematics as collateral to make the threat absolute. Julian continued, the words stumbling out in a rush. He didn't want a clean architect, he wanted a broken one. He wanted leverage that guaranteed he owned your soul. He didn't save you, Elara. He trapped you. Julian's voice dropped lower, thick with a complicated mix of guilt and venom. I tried to tell him the plan was too extreme, too cruel, but he silenced me. He engineered the destruction of your academic future, your jobs, everything was his design. He used my gambling markers to manipulate Arthur, and he used Arthur to manipulate you. Now he's using the Vory attack to clean up his own loose ends, starting with me. He was silent for a breath, waiting for the devastating truth to sink in. I have evidence, Elara. Documents. The original IOU. If you come with me, we can expose him, protect Arthur, and disappear. You're an architect, you know how to build a life from the ground up. Dom is the real enemy. The Vory just want the tunnel schematics, Dom wanted you. Julian's plea ended, leaving Elara alone with two shattering truths. She had been betrayed not once, but twice. Arthur had been a fool, and Dom had been a monster. The man who owned her was an emotional engineer of chilling competence. And Julian, her only connection to a possible escape, was a desperate, compromised traitor fighting for his own life. She stood up, walking slowly to the wall of the safe room, placing her palm flat against the cold steel. The despair was overwhelming, but it was quickly replaced by an icy clarity. Julian is a liar. He may be telling the truth about the debt inflation, but he was calling her from a fugitive position, offering her a future with a man indebted to the Vory, a man Dom would hunt to the ends of the earth. Julian was chaos. Dom is a monster. He engineered her entire imprisonment, but he was stable chaos. He was predictable. His possessiveness of her and the child was absolute. She was carrying his heir, a bloodline investment. He would move mountains to protect them both from the outside world. Elara thought of the Vory's threat, of Sergei Volkov's casual mention of her unborn child. If she ran with Julian, she would be placing herself and the baby directly in the path of the combined fury of Dom and the Vory. If she stayed with Dom, she would be in a gilded cage, but she would be alive, protected by an army, and her father would remain safe in his Arizona facility, Dom's new leverage against her good behavior. She made her choice, not as a victim, but as a ruthless survivor. An architect calculates the strongest structural solution, regardless of the cost of materials. Elara raised the phone and pressed the voice command button. She spoke two words, clear and cold, into the small, teeny speaker. Julian, I'm sending you coordinates. The old warehouse on Pier 52. Meet me there in 1 hour. Alone. Bring the documents. It was a trap, a dangerous, necessary move. Dom was hunting Julian, and Julian needed the debt documents to clear his name, or at least to give Elara a bargaining chip. Elara knew she couldn't rely on Dom's men to catch Julian before he destroyed his evidence. She needed those papers, and she needed Dom to trust her. Elara put the burner phone in the waste disposal chute and watched it vanish. She walked over to the safe room's internal communication panel, pressed the override code, and waited for Dom's voice. When the connection finally snapped open, Dom's voice was strained, thick with barely contained violence. Elara, what are you doing? I told you not to break contact. I know who the leak is, Dominic, she said, her voice steady, professional, and chillingly devoid of emotion. It's Julian. He just contacted me. He's running, but he wants to meet. He claims he has proof you manipulated the debt from the start. But I know what Julian is, a liability. I've calculated the optimal convergence point for his apprehension. Pier 52, 1 hour. I'll send you the details, but only when your security measures are fully in place. You have one chance to prove that my loyalty is the best structural investment you've ever made. She had transformed herself from the structural asset into the structural integrity officer. She was not a wife, not a victim, but a strategic partner, delivering his rogue agent on a silver platter. She would use the truth of his manipulation to gain his trust and secure her position, a position from which she could finally start to rebuild her world from the inside out. Elara's calculated gamble paid off with swift, brutal efficiency. Following the coordinates Elara fed him, Dominic Ricci's security detail cornered Julian Reyes at Pier 52. Julian, desperate and cornered, died resisting arrest. He was a cautionary tale of a structural failure, removed from the system he threatened. Dom had Julian's body moved immediately. Elara was released from the safe room, stepping back into the active war zone of the TriBeCa residence. The tension radiating from Dom was palpable, but his focus was now entirely on her. He had a fugitive, a traitor, and the primary weakness in his security dealt with. Her loyalty, proven by her willingness to betray the man she barely knew but who offered her escape, was now the strongest load-bearing element in his life. "You chose wisely, Elara," Dom said, his voice flat but conveying immense satisfaction. Julian wasn't just lying about the debt. He was the weakness. The Vory didn't just blackmail him over a small gambling marker, they leveraged him with a $25 million marker, a debt he never told me about. They forced him to leak the Arizona transport route. And he lied to you, inflating the truth about my initial manipulation to save his own skin. Elara didn't flinch. The true scope of Julian's deceit didn't shock her, it merely confirmed her architectural assessment. Julian was unstable, Dom was predictable. She was carrying Dom's child, and Dom was the better fortress. But the relief was short-lived. The execution of Julian was a declaration of war. Moments later, the compound's external sensor screamed an alert. "Vory attack," Marco announced, his voice tight. "They've targeted this location. Sergei Volkov knows we have the schematics and he knows the collateral is still alive. They're coming for Elara." Dom grabbed Elara's arm, ready to drag her back to the safe room. "We move to the secondary bunker, now." Before they could take 2 steps, Dom's secure line rang, displaying a blocked number. He answered, putting it on speaker. Sergei Volkov's voice, rough and triumphant, filled the room. "Ricci. You are predictable. You killed my pawn, Julian. Now I take your original collateral. Arthur Vance. We are live-streaming the execution to the entire Eastern Seaboard families. Give me Elara, and I send you his body intact. Refuse, and you get him in pieces." Dom roared into the phone, but Sergei simply chuckled. "I'm waiting, architect's wife. You have 60 seconds. Elara felt the cold dread twist in her stomach, but her architectural mind, constantly scanning for flaws, suddenly seized on a detail from Sergei's background noise, a faint, rhythmic hum she recognized instantly. It was the sound of the obsolete, pressurized air systems used only in the pre-1950s infrastructure of one specific abandoned warehouse complex in Long Island City. "Stop," Elara commanded, pushing Dom's hand away. She was 6 months pregnant, dressed in a sleek black suit, and her eyes were shining with a dangerous, calculated focus. "I know where he is. I designed the fire safety overhaul for that whole block last year. That hum, it's the old K-line filtration system, only in use at the Vory's temporary HQ near the old rail yards." She pulled Dom towards the massive digital map displaying the city's complex utility layers, an unauthorized feature she had installed herself. She zoomed in on the warehouse structure. "The perimeter is ironclad, but the schematics are flawed," she pointed to a section of the basement. The original 1920s drainage map shows a decommissioned storm drain running directly beneath the northeast corner. "It's a blind spot. Too low risk for their security to cover. I can get in." Dom stared at her, then at her swollen abdomen, his eyes alight with a terrifying mix of admiration and shock. "Absolutely not. You are the leverage. You are pregnant. It's too dangerous. He has my father. And he has my child's inheritance, Elara said, her voice a steel cable. I am not a hostage, Dom. I am your structural solution. Give me 2 guards, and your sidearm. Dom hesitated for only a second, assessing the geometry of the situation, total loss, or high-risk leverage. He handed her a compact, pearl-handled SIG sauer he kept in his desk drawer. Elara arrived at the warehouse complex, flanked by 2 of Dom's most silent, efficient enforcers. She ordered them to wait outside the perimeter, giving them precise instructions on when to expect her signal. Elara, 6 months pregnant, descended into the dark, damp, reeking tunnel, her suit now stained with filth. The narrow drain opened into the sub-basement of the Vory HQ, right beneath the makeshift execution chamber. She climbed out of the drain, her face pale but her expression utterly cold. Sergei Volkov was standing over a kneeling Arthur Vance, holding a gun to his head, finishing his 60-second countdown. Time's up, Ricci. Sergei roared into his phone, unaware of the structural failure beneath his feet. He finally looked up, alerted by the subtle shift in the room's air pressure. He saw Elara, emerging from the shadows, her black suit pristine despite the sewer filth, the small gold band on her finger catching the light. He laughed, a deep,